Hi guys, it's me, ChazraHD, and welcome to this full race review of the 2018 Brazilian Grand Prix. Hopefully you guys are doing well after what was yesterday a sublime race in Sao Paulo. I wish I could watch it again. It was so good. And today we are going to fully review what happened. Hopefully you're doing well if you're from, you know, the Americas or Europe or the UK, Asia, Australia, wherever you are in the world. Hopefully you are doing well ahead of this review. And guys, if you somehow missed out on what was one of the best dry races at Interlagos maybe ever, then I will now take you through the results. And it was Lewis Hamilton winning the Brazilian Grand Prix, for Max Verstappen in second, Raikkonen third, Ricciardo fourth, Bottas fifth and Vettel in sixth. And then Charles Leclerc in P7, Grosjean P8, K-Mag in P9 and Sergio Perez in P10. And then the bottom 10 is P11 is Hartley, and then Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Van Dorn, Sirotkin, Alonso and Stroll are the drivers that finished the race but did not score any points. And your only two retirements are Nico Hülkenberg and Marcus Ericsson. So that's what happened yesterday, but now let's get into the top teams and how they did in Interlagos. And first off are your new World Constructors Champions, once again, Mercedes. And, well, they didn't have the fastest car on race day. There is no doubt about it. Mercedes did not have the fastest car, nor did they have a fast enough car to win the Grand Prix on pure pace. But, of course, because Esteban Ocon took out Max Verstappen, as we'll get on to later on, they were able, with Lewis Hamilton, to take the victory. Now, again, when it comes to the pace of the Mercedes, it just wasn't there. You know, Lewis Hamilton was way quicker than Bottas was, but you could see on Lewis Hamilton's tyres at the end of his first stint and at the end of the race, his front tyres were very badly blistered, very bad. So he did, and Mercedes did, struggle on tyres a lot. But of course, the result is what matters, and they got the win and now win the Constructors' Championship. That's now 5 years in a row they have won both the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championships. And I have to say, guys, for Mercedes, they are one of the best teams in sports right now, for sure. And in history, we are going to remember this era of Mercedes as one of the, you know, the best teams in terms of personnel. You know, driver, team principal, designer, strategist. We will remember Mercedes as one of the best teams, I think, in F1 history. They are, in terms of titles, dominating the sport. They haven't dominated the last 2 years in terms of pace, but in terms of, again, winning the drivers and constructors titles, they have dominated the sport. But as well, I almost forgot to mention this, Lewis Hamilton almost did not finish the Grand Prix because Toto Wolff came out after the race and said that Lewis Hamilton, at some point in the race, was due an imminent engine failure. He was told by the people that were, you know, watch over the engine and, you know, try to look after the power unit in terms of reliability, that the power unit was about to fail just one lap later. But then those guys fixed it in the garage, I think. And Lewis, of course, was able to continue and go and get a race win. So they were very close to not taking the constructors. So nice to see that Mercedes, even though they had a very tricky situation that was going to be disastrous at the time, they were still able to get around it and get a race victory. But this, guys, is what Lewis Hamilton had to say after his victory. This is what he said. This is what everyone works for. We really pulled together as a unit. this is definitely a weekend to remember. Absolutely, for him and Mercedes, because Lewis Hamilton has been the best driver in 2018. There is no doubt about that. But if Mercedes had not improved since, you know, the first 4 races where they were not as quick as Ferrari, then I'm not sure Lewis, I'm not going to say he wouldn't have won the title, but he would not be in this position. So he does have to be grateful towards Mercedes also, because their car improvements since the European season started all the way to now have been fantastic. No doubt about that. And for Mercedes, this is what happened in the race. So, of course, Lewis Hamilton won. Valtteri Bottas, we'll get onto in a moment, finished in 4th. Mercedes win their 5th Constructors title in a row. That is 5 titles in a row from 2014 to 2018. So that's 2014, 15, 16, 17, and now 2018. Can they do it again in 2019? If you had to ask me now, I would say they're going to win both championships yet again. I don't see until at least 2020 how Mercedes can be beaten. I just don't see it right now. If they don't produce a quick enough car for 2019, then, you know, maybe. But if their car is equal enough with the Ferrari or the Red Bull, I think Mercedes are going to win both championships yet again. But we'll now go on to Valtteri Bottas, who, I have to say, despite him getting the fastest lap and the new lap record, of course, because he pitted an extra time and had much fresher tyres, Valtteri was poor in the Grand Prix. He constantly, until the last few laps when he pitted again, he always had cars behind him trying to get past because he was so slow. He was basically a mobile chicane in the Grand Prix. He had no pace at all. His rear tyres were destroyed at the end of his first stint because he just didn't have any grip, because of course the Mercedes does wear out its tyres quite a lot. But if you compare it to Lewis Hamilton, he was just nowhere near Lewis in terms of race pace, nowhere near him. And, you know, if you compare that to qualifying, I think Valtteri was only a 10.5 behind. But in race pace, Valtteri looked double that, say 3 or 4 tenths behind. Very worrying, I think, this performance. And again, I know he was very fast at the end, but this performance, if you are a Bottas fan, should worry you, because, you know, we have seen, I think, this now a bit too often. These kind of races where if he's ahead of another guy that's in a Ferrari or a Red Bull, he always gets past because he either doesn't handle his tyres well or just doesn't have any pace. So, definitely worrying signs for Valtteri. But again, Mercedes win the Constructors, so I don't think, as a team, they will care too much. But we'll move on from Mercedes and go on to Ferrari. Now, race pace-wise, I think the Ferrari was faster than the Mercedes. They just couldn't get past Valtteri Bottas quick enough. And for Sebastian Vettel, what a poor race this was. In terms of race pace, if you compare it to, say, the last, well, since he joined Ferrari, this has to be one of his worst races for Ferrari in terms of pace on race day. He had no pace at all. He was locking his tyres constantly in the first 10 laps. That's why he was passed by Bottas at the start, then Verstappen, then Raikkonen, and eventually in the second stint he was passed by Daniel Ricciardo. But no pace at all. No pace whatsoever. Very disappointing for Sebastian. I predicted him to win the Grand Prix because I thought his soft compound tyres would do well. But as we'll go on to now, Vettel does not feel as though the soft tyres were that good of a tyre to start on. This is what he said. Obviously, this was not an easy race, and I am not happy with 6th place. I tried to do my best, but the car was difficult to drive. He also said, guys, that the car was difficult to drive in a straight line. We'll get on to more of that in a moment. He also says, honestly, I don't think it was an advantage for us to start on the soft tyres because the super softs lasted longer than expected, but that's how it was. Now, when it comes to, him saying also that his car was difficult to drive in a straight line, I think when it comes to that, we kind of got an insight to what that issue might have been, because Maurizio Arrivabene came out and said that there was an issue on one of the sensors on Vettel's car that was causing Vettel to be a bit slower than usual. So I guess you can call that a reliability issue. I don't know, but yeah, not good, of course. And I will say as well, even though there was an issue with one of the sensors, I think Vettel just struggled with the tyres on race day as well. I don't think it was just that faulty sensor, but bad there for Vettel. But for his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, again, another podium. I believe that's podium number 12 of 2018. A fantastic race from him. He could have done more maybe to get past Valtteri Bottas in the first stint and in the second stint. Eventually, of course, he did get past, but it was a bit too late for him to try and go for the race win, which he could have if he got past a lot earlier. But for Kimi, yeah, I think it was a good race. He had good race pace, better than his teammate Sebastian Vettel. And I will say about Kimi, I think people need to start giving Kimi credit for 2018. This has been Kimi's best season at Ferrari by far. For me, I would even say since 2007, because he's been consistently for most of the season up in the top 2 or 3 on the podium, and has always had very good pace on race day. And I think in the second half of the season has been about equal with Sebastian Vettel, I would say, since Spa. So Kimi Raikkonen has had a very good 2018, and good to see him, of course, getting another podium. And this is what he had to say. It was good, but definitely not easy. The tyre was good. That's the soft tyre he's talking about. But it was too difficult to pass. We can't replay it on the other tyres, so you never know. So I think Ferrari are basically admitting that their decision to start on the soft tyres was wrong in hindsight, of course. And as he said, we can't replay it, so we'll never know how quick they would have been on super soft tyres. I think they would have been definitely closer to winning. But again, we never know what would have happened. But for Ferrari, I have to say for this weekend, not good enough. They should have got pole position, and I think they should have won the race, given that their car really should be suited to this track, but they just did not produce, when it mattered in qualifying and also on race day. But we'll move on now to Red Bull. And wow, what an eventful race for not only Max Verstappen, but Daniel Ricciardo. We'll get on to Ricciardo in just a moment. For Max Verstappen, I have to say first, clearly Max was the driver of the day. I think Max was just brilliant from start to finish. I know he had the incident, the incident with Ocon, but in terms of pace and getting past his rivals, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. First off, at the start, he got past Kimi Raikkonen, then Raikkonen got back past at turn 4. Then Max passed him into turn 1, I think at the end of lap 2, going into lap 3. Then he dived down the inside at turn 1 of Sebastian Vettel, then got past Valtteri Bottas, as the Red Bull was very quick on race day. And then he set after Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton then pitted. Verstappen stayed out on the super soft tyres, put in a fantastic first stint on the super soft tyres, came out and then closed down Lewis Hamilton very quickly on the faster and softer compound, the soft tyre compared to the medium of Lewis Hamilton. He then passed Hamilton into turn 1 very easily. But then, the incident with Esteban Ocon is what cost Verstappen the race win. So, of course, you know, I think we've all seen it and heard all of the sides, but I'll say it again. Max Verstappen, I believe somewhere in the middle sector, lapped Esteban Ocon. Ocon, of course, because he has a better car in a straight line and because he had the slipstream, got a great run up the hill onto the start-finish straight and then into turn 1. Tried to unlap himself around the outside, but then crashed into Max Verstappen. Now, I'll say it again. Esteban Ocon was clearly at fault and the punishment he got was absolutely correct. I don't think he should have been disqualified. I think the 10-second stop-go was the best penalty for Esteban. But that did cost Max Verstappen the race because after that he had quite big floor damage. And even though he caught Lewis Hamilton towards the end and only finished a second and a half behind, if he didn't have any floor damage after that incident, I think he would have caught him and passed him. But if he didn't have that incident, I think Max would have comfortably won this race by maybe 10 seconds or something like that. He was that quick on race day and for me was the driver of the day. But let's hear from Max as to what happened or what he feels happened in his Grand Prix. This is what he said. When you get taken out like that, I have no words. I think the car worked brilliantly today. The team gave me a great strategy, but we should have won today. And he's correct. They should have won, but a certain driver stopped that from happening. So there you go. And by the way, guys, I'm not going to go super deep into the whole Verstappen-Ocon incident here because I am planning to do a video on it on Thursday. So I'm not going to go super deep tonight, but I definitely will on Thursday. So we'll move on from Max and go on to Daniel Ricciardo. For me, the second best driver on race day. So I guess second place in the driver of the day, you could say. Yeah, he was fantastic. Very good performance. Started in P11 because of that 5-place grid penalty for replacing his turbo. Got through the midfield runners very quickly. Got up to the back of the Bottas train in the first stint. And then tried to get past as many people as possible. First off, got past Sebastian Vettel after waiting quite a while. Great move, as you can see, down to... initially, it was down to turn 1, and then Vettel came back at him, but then Ricciardo got him back into turn number 4. Then Ricciardo passed Bottas at turn 1 with about 10 laps to go. Then caught Kimi Raikkonen, but didn't have enough time to pass the Iceman. If there was, I'd say, 10 more laps, I think Ricciardo would have finished on the podium, but there you go. That's the way it is. And I have to say for Ricciardo, because of what happened for Verstappen, he could have won the race today if he, not today, yesterday, if he started P6. He absolutely could have, because he was also, just like Max, very, very fast. Very fast. Great performance from Daniel Ricciardo. And I guess, even though he finished 4th, you could still say it was kind of an unlucky result. Because if the marshals had not sprayed the turbo with fire extinguisher after his retirement at Mexico, I think Ricciardo would have been at least on the podium, if not winning this race. So I guess you could say a bit unlucky for Ricciardo, but for Red Bull, even though it was not the result they wanted, they can at least be happy that they did have tremendous pace. And I have to say, going towards the final race in Abu Dhabi, I think Red Bull kind of have to be, I wouldn't say favourites, but they're definitely going to be competing for the win. No doubt about it. This performance just shows that. But we'll move on from Red Bull and now go on to the drivers' standings. Here you go. Here is the top 3. So Lewis Hamilton, of course, won the championship back in Mexico. He is leading by 81 points. That just shows you how Lewis has been fantastic in the final part of this season. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, with his 3rd place, stays in 3rd. And then Valtteri Bottas is 4th, but Max Verstappen is a lot closer in 5th place with Daniel Ricciardo in P6. If Verstappen had won that race, he would be in P4 in the Drivers' Championship. So, again, such a shame for Verstappen, but will have a chance to take 3rd in the championship at the final race. Of course, he needs to win because Raikkonen is 17 points clear of Verstappen, so he needs to win that race to give himself a chance of 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. But guys, those are the top teams. Now I want to know what you guys think of Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. For Mercedes, what did you think of their race and what happened for their drivers? Same for Ferrari, and for Red Bull, you know, same for them, but also have your share your thoughts on the Verstappen Ocon incident. Make sure to put that in the chat below, and I will, for the next 10 minutes, read out what you guys have to say. Right, let me take a look. I'm pretty sure there's going to be plenty of interesting comments about this, so let me take a look. Right, Warren M. Ocon deserved the penalty, agreed, but Max could see Ocon was just behind his front wheels into turn 2. Cars just don't disappear. Max made a mistake closing the door that hard. I disagree. I think Max was entitled to turn in because he would at that point be thinking, like anyone would, that Ocon is not going to go for the move there because it was so risky. It's risky doing it for position, never mind unlapping yourself. So I think Verstappen was entitled to turn in. It was just Ocon being an idiot, I'm afraid. Ronan Brady, Bottas is just useless. He was no good here last year. What's changed from this year? Well, last year he was on pole position. And even though he didn't win the race, he was close enough to go for the win. So it was a lot better last year. But at this Brazilian Grand Prix was not good at all. Alan, I can't read your second name because I'm going to absolutely destroy it in terms of pronunciation. He says, I don't think 10 seconds was harsh enough. He should be given a grid penalty for the next race. You know what? Yeah, I'd probably give him a grid penalty for the next race. I don't know, 5 places or something like that. But I think, again, in race at the Brazilian Grand Prix, the penalty that was given was the correct one. Andrew Drury, first time Lewis has won a race after he has won the championship. Not even just in F1. That is true. I forgot to remember that yesterday. That is the first time Lewis has won a race after he's won the championship in the same season. So I guess he has completed that hurdle. Tonka Toy Truck, Lewis would have avoided the risk. That's the difference. True. And I know Lewis said after in the cool-down room going to the podium to Max that he had nothing to lose and you had it all to lose. But that doesn't condone at all what Ocon did. That does not condone what Ocon did at all. Right, let me take a look. There's plenty of great comments here, guys. Thank you very much. Simon Troop says Ferrari had the wrong tyre choice. Yeah, in hindsight they did. But again, in hindsight, going into the race, I think most of us thought that the soft tyres was going to be a fantastic tyre to be on. But it was probably, I wouldn't say the worst tyre. It was the worst tyre at the start, but in the whole race, it was probably the second best tyre to be on. I think if you started on the super softs and then went to the soft tyre like Red Bull did, that was the best way to go. But of course, Ferrari went soft to medium with Raikkonen, and then soft to medium to super soft with Sebastian Vettel. Andrew Jury, lol, since yesterday social media has been a bleep storm. Yep, it has. It has. And if you want to go take a look at Esteban Ocon's Twitter, and the Twitter post about him defending himself against, against people with the incident, there is, I think I saw there was 1.7k responses or replies. That just shows you how angry people were after the race. Ronan Brady, I would get rid of this rubbish of starting on different tyres. Only the softest compound should be used in qualifying. I would absolutely love to see that, but it does throw up something interesting for the start. So it's, it's kind of a lose-lose situation. JB says, great to see him. Notice how during the Ocon-Verstappen argument, Bottas and Hartley were just watching it. If this was a school thing, Bottas and Hartley would have got detention for being bystanders. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm surprised that Bottas and Hartley didn't really care. They were just watching. I think Bottas and Hartley, to be honest, they were knackered. I don't think they had the energy to actually get involved. They didn't really care. Ronan Brady saying, think I'm better off Twitter. When it comes to these type of controversies, yes, you are. Hans Otto, let all cares just start on the tyre they want. There used to be a rule, I can't remember when it was. I don't know if it was pre-2010 where you could start on any tyre at the start. I can't remember when it was, but there was a rule that you could start on the soft or hard compound when, whatever compound you wanted, and it didn't matter if you qualified on it or not. Francisco, Bottas has been bad since Russia. I wonder why. No, I don't think he has been bad since Russia, because remember, Suzuka, he finished in second and did very well to hold off Verstappen. So I don't think Bottas has been bad since then. He had a good qualifying, to be honest. Not a great qualifying, but, good enough for how good he is compared to Hamilton and Vettel. But then the race was poor. Suzuka, I thought, was a very good weekend for Valtteri. So I wouldn't say that, but he definitely hasn't been amazing since then. Right, I'm just looking up the chat now, guys, to see what you guys are saying. In case I missed any. Wow, there's plenty of comments about this. Simon Troop, Red Bull had cracking race pace. Connor Chapman says, he's responding to someone else. Ivan Jones, what a race. How do you think that matches up with Silverstone and Baku, etc.? I think I'll have to kind of think about it and kind of compare, but I think this race could go down as the best one of 2018. I think it could. Because you can't really say at any point that there was a boring, part of the race. It was going off everywhere. That race is what F1 should be most of the time, and that's why we love the sport. We don't love the sport, however, for races like Monaco. Not in terms of, the glitz and the glamour, but in the racing. We don't love F1 because of that, but when it comes to a race like that, that's why we love this sport so much. Sebastian, I don't think it was the best. Britain was great. Mercedes versus Ferrari. Well, at this race, you had Mercedes versus Ferrari versus Red Bull. And even though we did get that a bit at Silverstone, I think this was a bit better than... I wouldn't say the Silverstone race, but I think the battle at the top was better than Silverstone. Right, I'll try and read out, guys, a couple more comments, and then I'll move on to the midfield. By the way, the Ocon Verstappen stuff is not finished in this race review because I do have a quote from Esteban Ocon, and it is the tweet he made, which has so many responses. And I have definitely something to say about it, and I'm sure you guys do, because it is controversial, to say the least. Francisco says, do you think Ferrari, or asks, do you think Ferrari was wrong letting Kimi go for next year due to the fact he is performing very well? I like Leclerc, but one more year to develop would be a much better fit in the Ferrari, I think. I understand your point, I really do, and Kimi has been very good this year, and to be honest, he has been good enough to earn a seat for 2019 at Ferrari. But the reason he's not at Ferrari for 2019, and nor should do I think he should, is because Leclerc has just been so impressive. And I also think, and I do agree with this, you know, Sebastian Vettel in the last 2 seasons, we know, has bottled both championships this year and 2017. Kimi Raikkonen as his teammate, that is Vettel's guy, if you could say it like that. And I think, because Vettel now 2 years in a row has not got the job done, you have to take away a bit of his comfort zone to kind of give him a message of, you know, you're a great driver, we are supporting you, we're going to give you everything you need, but we're going to take away your best friend as a driver, as your teammate, because we're starting to lose trust. And I agree with that, because if he can't get the job done, then why should he have a say on who his teammate is? So, yeah, there you go. Right, I'll read out one more comment and then I will move on to the midfield. By the way, guys, don't worry, you will get the chance to do or to ask questions or post comments in about 15 minutes time, because I will be doing a Q&A very shortly. Ronan Brady, I actually think Vettel was never really in the 2017 championship, as the car wasn't as near as good as the Mercedes. This year is different, though I disagree, because if you go back and look, Hamilton was not officially in the lead of the championship until Monza. So, you know, I wouldn't say that. Vettel was in the lead of the championship for a long time, all the way from Australia to Ferrari's home race, and then after that Ferrari and Vettel just imploded. So no, I wouldn't say that. Vettel had a very good chance of winning the championship in 2017 and he blew it. Ferrari did a bit as well, but I think Vettel did cost himself and the team more points for sure. But now, guys, we will move on to the midfield for the next 15 minutes. First off, McLaren. Now, they didn't have an absolutely horrific race, considering that we thought they were going to be at the back anyway with Williams. They finished with Stoffel Van Dorn, I believe, ahead of both Williams cars, and Van Dorn beat his teammate Fernando Alonso as well, as you can see in this picture. So, good race for Van Dorn, but at the end of the day for McLaren, not good enough. And I think we'll just move on very quickly because McLaren are right now irrelevant. Next up is Renault, who did have, I think, quite a good start to the race. As you can see with this picture, the two Renaults very close, and they got very close to touching at the start. And I think they did, going into Jinsao, the final corner. They did have a bit of contact racing. Very hard, maybe a bit too hard, but there you go, they got away with it. But race pace wise, Renault were, as expected, just not good enough when it comes to getting points. Carlos Sainz finished in P12, had a decent comeback at the end to get past Pierre Gasly for that position, but again, just not what Renault want. And for Nico Hülkenberg, he retired midway through the race. So for Renault, not that great of a race. But then again, we expected it, and I think Renault did as well. They just don't have enough power to be good at this kind of track. Saying that though, Red Bull didn't, and look at them. So maybe they need to look at the aero a bit as well. Next up though is Force India. Now first off, Sergio Perez had, I wouldn't say a good race, it was an okay race. I think he kind of benefited from, you know, Ericsson falling down the field and then retiring. And the Force India was better on race day, but that is a usual occurrence. The Force India on race day tends to be better than it is on the Saturday. So an okay race for Sergio Perez, and of course scoring a point, good for him, but they're not going to catch McLaren, I don't think, in the constructors now for P6. They're 13 points behind, or 14 points behind. We'll look at the constructors once we get to the end of the team review here, but I don't think realistically they are going to catch McLaren and finish ahead of them. I don't see it. They've ran out of races, and I'm afraid the races at Mexico and Singapore have cost them that, since they restarted, of course, their points at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. But we'll move on from Perez and, of course, go on to Esteban Ocon, who I have to say, before he crashed into Verstappen, did have, up to that point, a very good race. He got past Alonso, Van Dorn with very good overtakes, and was starting to get nearer to the points, but then, of course, had that crash with Max Verstappen and was clearly at fault, as I've said earlier. But I just want to show you this, guys. It's a quote from Ocon, and this is what he tweeted after, you know, the whole melee after the race. This is what he has to say. I respect the FIA's decision, but just to be clear, if you are faster, you are allowed to unlap yourself. I overtook 7 times into turn 2 this race. It was always tight, but always fair. Now, the problem I have with this is, so, he is right when he says, if you are faster, you are allowed to unlap yourself. But he wasn't faster. The reason he was, able to do what he did was because he has a Mercedes power unit, and of course the Red Bull has the slowest power unit on the grid. And he had a mega slipstream up the hill going into turn 1. That's why he was able to do that in the first place. So I disagree that he was faster. He was faster, on the straight, which is not a surprise, but that doesn't mean you should go for the overtake, because once they got to the corners, of course, Max is then going to pull away. And there was an incident later on with Lance Stroll where I think he let through Raikkonen on the pit straight and was actually gaining in a straight line going down to turn 1 and could have made the move. But Lance Stroll, and I've criticised Lance a lot, but was very smart in saying, you know what, I'm not going to make the move because there's no point. He is clearly faster, even if I'm on faster tyres. I'm going to let Raikkonen go, and then he let Daniel Ricciardo go past as well. That's how you're supposed to do it. But Ocon, I think, just got way too hot-headed and hot under the collar in that incident. And he says, I overtook 7 times into turn 2. Yes, you did, and, we compliment you on that, but that was when you were racing for position. You're not supposed to do that with the race leader, and that's what Charlie Whiting said after the race. Charlie Whiting came out and said that you're allowed to unlap yourself, absolutely, and I agree, you're allowed to unlap yourself if you are faster, over a lap, not just down a straight. But what he did to the race leader was unacceptable and clearly worthy of a penalty. So I have to disagree with Esteban here. Again, he was faster on the straight, but was not faster overall on the lap. So I have to disagree with Esteban there. But we'll move on from that incident, and the next time we'll properly start talking about it will be on Thursday. Next up is Williams, and I have to say for Williams, they did have a faster car than McLaren in my opinion, even though Van Dorn did beat the two Williamses in the race. I think the reason Van Dorn did beat the two Williamses was because Van Dorn was ignoring blue flags a bit during the race, and so was Alonso. So I think that might have been why Williams were beaten, but I'd say a decent race considering how bad 2018 has been. So an okay race, but again, nothing special. Next up is Toro Rosso. Slightly disappointing, I think, for Pierre Gasly. Started in P9 because of Ricciardo's penalty. Of course, he was never going to hold on to that because Ricciardo got past very, very quickly. But was in the points. Ericsson fell down the field, so he did get up to back up to P9. But then after that, just did not have enough pace and also struggled at the first and only pit stop for Toro Rosso. So, yeah, it's such a shame for Toro Rosso because I thought they had enough pace to get a point. But, again, once they got to the first or the end of the first stint, they just fell away massively, especially Pierre Gasly. Brendan Hartley did, I think, very well to finish in 11th. If he could just improve his qualifying, I think Hartley would have finished in the points at this race. He was very good. But again, if you start in 16th, you're giving yourself a very hard job to go and score points. But for Toro Rosso, I think if you take away, the race and you look at qualifying, it was very good. And I think for Honda, not in flying colours, but just about passed the test of this power circuit with their upgraded engine that they brought at Suzuka. So nice to see that Honda are still doing well and making progress. Next up is Haas. Haas, I don't think had the fastest car in the midfield on race day, but they did have a good enough car to finish in P8 and P9. It wasn't really a spectacular race, to be honest. Magnussen did have a bit of his barge board removed with contact with Marcus Ericsson going down into turn 2 at the start. But yeah, in terms of racing, there was nothing spectacular from Haas. They were just very quick, consistent, not too far off Charles Leclerc in the Sauber. But yeah, had a very, very good race in my opinion, considering that qualifying was, let's be honest, quite disappointing. But if you compare them to Renault, as Renault, still have not confirmed officially their 4th in the constructors, this is what happened in the race if you compare the two teams. So Grosjean finished in 8th, Magnussen 9th, Sainz in 12th, and Hülkenberg, of course, DNF'd. So Haas have gained 6 points on Renault, but are 34 points behind Renault. They need a miracle to beat Renault to 4th in the constructors. I'd love to see it happen, but it's not going to. It's absolutely not going to. And finally is Sauber, and for me the star of the midfield has to be Charles Leclerc. He didn't outqualify his teammate in qualifying. Marcus Ericsson, of course, was very good. We'll get on to him in a minute. But in the race, had just fantastic pace. Fantastic. If you look at the first stint, when Bottas was holding up Raikkonen and Vettel and Ricciardo, Leclerc was only 2.5 seconds behind. That just shows you how quick this guy can be. And I do know, I do know, sorry, I'm trying to just think of what I'm trying to say. I know that the Sauber this weekend has been very quick. Of course, look at Marcus Ericsson's performance in qualifying P7 and starting in P6. But at the end of the day, for Charles Leclerc to be in this position, not being that far off, the top guys, and I know he didn't finish close to the top guys at the end of the race, of course, because the Sauber is just not quick enough. But to be that close to the two Ferraris, for example, at the, I wouldn't say at the start, but after, 20 laps, that just shows you how good he could be in 2019. And as you can see on your screen, Leclerc ahead of Vettel. Is that a preview for 2019? Who knows? I really hope, though, we do get these two being this close on track for Ferrari. Would be great to see. But for Marcus Ericsson, very disappointing. He got a terrible start, went down to, I think, P10. Was starting to improve, though, but then after, I think, debris fell off the rear of his car, he then spun out of the Grand Prix and retired from the race, pulling in to the pit. So, disappointing for Ericsson, but it has been a good weekend for Marcus because, of course, he had his best ever qualifying performance of his entire F1 career and his best starting position for a race. So for Marcus, all good. I'm not going to complain too much about what Marcus did this weekend. But let's look now at the constructors standings. So Mercedes are now your constructors champions, Ferrari are second, and of course Red Bull clearly in third, directly in the middle of Ferrari and Renault in terms of points. And then Renault, as you can see there, they're not 34 points clear, they're 24 points clear. But again, realistically, are Haas going to gain 25 points on Renault in one race? They're not going to. Let's be honest. McLaren are 14 points clear of Force India for P6. So I think it's a lot more possible for Force India to take 6th than it is for Haas to take 4th. But again, for Force India to take P6 in the constructors, they're going to need to be as good as Sauber were this weekend in Abu Dhabi. And they're going to hope that, say, a couple of the top guys retire. Because I just don't see realistically how Force India will get that from McLaren. But there's a very interesting story developing in the constructors, guys. Because as you can see there, Force India are on 48 points. Look at what Sauber are on. They're in 8th, but are only 6 points behind. Sauber are looking very, very strong right now, and they could take P7 from Force India. They only need to finish in, well, they need, say, a 7th and 8th place finish, or a 7th and 9th place finish, and for Force India not to finish in the points. So Sauber could take 7th in the constructors. What an amazing turn of events that would be. Toro Rosso are in 9th, and they're going to finish in 9th because they don't have enough pace to beat Sauber. And of course, Williams are in 10th. So guys, that is your full race review. But for now, for the next half an hour, I want you guys to put in the chat right now your questions about the race or what's going on in the world of F1. And yeah, for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to try and answer the best, or in the best way I can. So make sure you put in the chat right now your thoughts at the end of this race review. Right, let me take a look at what you guys are saying. Sebastian says, next year's Australian Grand Prix as a Ferrari fan is worrying. This year we were lucky to be ahead of Red Bull, and I think Red Bull will have the fastest car. I don't think Red Bull will have the fastest car in Australia or in 2019. But if Honda do have a good integration process into the Red Bull car in pre-season testing, then definitely for the second half of the season, watch out for Red Bull. Really do, because Honda, I think, do have a better power unit right now than Renault. And if Red Bull had a Honda yesterday, maybe Ricciardo would have finished on the podium. Who knows? Red Bull are looking good with Honda. Yep, they look like they are going to look good with Honda. Hopefully Honda don't do a 2017 and fall backwards. Ronan Brady, what do you make of Vettel having a break clause in his contract at the end of next year? Adds extra pressure. It does, but I think he needs that to perform because, again, as I said earlier, I think Vettel has, for the first 4 seasons of his of his Ferrari career, has been in a comfort zone at Ferrari, and now, because deservedly so, that comfort zone is gradually being took away. The pressure is now a lot higher than it was even in 2017. This time last year, I did not think we would be in this position. Maybe kind of, debating whether Vettel's going to be at Ferrari long term. Could Vettel beat Charles Leclerc? I did not think we were going to debate this. This time last year, I didn't see that at all. Right, Francisco, do you think next year will be between Mercedes and Red Bull? I just don't see Vettel winning again, and Leclerc is young. I think we're going to have a very close top 3 in 2019. But I think, again, if you ask me right now, I would say to win the drivers and constructors will be Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, because I think they're just too strong right now. But I think pace-wise, I think Mercedes will have the pace in the first 6 or 7 races. Then Ferrari will strike back until, say, Monza or Singapore. And then at the end of the season, Mercedes will be fast again. And probably Red Bull will be very fast then as well. Anders Ericsson, your view on Williams and McLaren surviving financially in 2019. McLaren will be fine. Williams, I'm not too sure because, of course, they're losing Martini. The Stroll family is withdrawing from the team, of course, with Lance Stroll going to Force India, we think. So, yeah, they're going to struggle. And, of course, finishing 10th in the Constructors this year is not good for Williams because, last year they finished 5th. So they're going to lose a lot of money from where they probably should be in the Constructors compared to last year. So, yeah, I'm not confident for Williams, but McLaren should be just fine. Sorry, guys, I have to clear my throat there. Right, let me look at some more. Simon Troop, do you think a Red Bull car will win in Abu Dhabi? I wouldn't be surprised if a Red Bull won. I don't think a Red Bull will win because I think they'll start in 5th and 6th again, and I think it'll be too far for them to go. Saying that, Max did what he did in Brazil, but you have to remember as well, Max would not have been able to make those moves as well in Abu Dhabi that he did in Brazil yesterday because it's a lot easier to pass at Sao Paulo than it is in Abu Dhabi. So, yeah, I don't think, if they do have similar race pace, I don't think they'll be able to win, but definitely they are going to be there on the podium, I think, for sure. Ben McCarthy, was yesterday's Kimi's last podium in F1? I don't know. Because obviously we do have one race left, and probably 2019 and 2020 left from Kimi Raikkonen, but when it comes to, his final podium for Ferrari, I don't know about Abu Dhabi because he does have a good history there, but we'll see. I just don't know. It's too close to call right now. Ben McCarthy, how much does it excruciate you with non-F1 fans or friends that don't watch F1 making stupid misconceptions of the sport? Yeah, it is very frustrating, but you know, they don't know any better because they didn't watch the sport. Simon Troop says the 2012 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was the best race there. Yeah, it was. Sebastian says, I believe Leclerc will get his first F1 win in Baku because in F2 he destroyed everyone even though he had to deal with his father passing away. Yeah, that is a good place for him to open his account. Also though, remember Bahrain. I know he wasn't good there this year in F1, but in F2 and in 2017 he was amazing. So also Bahrain, and Ferrari tend to always be very, very good in Bahrain. Connor Chapman, what do you believe has been Ferrari's real issue the past 2 seasons? Had it been Vettel's form or has it been because of the team? It's a bit of both. They're both contributing to their downfalls. Ferrari, I don't think, have experienced or good enough personnel. I think experience is what they desperately need. You know, people like Jacques Clear, for example. They need people like him at the team. But yeah, it's a combination of the two. I think Vettel's mistakes have cost the team more points, but also Ferrari have cost themselves a lot of points in the constructors. So it's a bit of both. You know, they're not going to fix this overnight, and that's why I don't think they're going to win the championship in 2019, because I don't see how they can turn around this still poor form compared to Mercedes when it comes to winning races and getting pole positions. I don't see it being turned around for 2019. I really don't. Ben McCarthy, how much do next year's aero regs play into Red Bull's hands with less power circuits and power sensitive areas at in tracks in F1, meaning cornering speed is even more essential? From that point of view, you make a good point, it is, but I do feel as though if we are less aero reliant in 2019, then that doesn't suit Red Bull as much as it does, you know, the current regulations do now. But I think I said this in my practice review for Brazil, that the teams have already reached the 2018 downforce levels in their CFD simulations for 2019. So, and I think I said this in a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Yes, they're taking away downforce, but they're going to make it back very quickly. By the end of 2019, they will be going faster than they were this year. No doubt about it, for me. Because the teams, they always find a way to get around it and develop like crazy. Ruse, that's a good name. If the new front wing does its job, then Ferrari should be strong. I think they have had the best engine this year. Well, Ferrari have had overall the best car this year, but they haven't. They have not capitalized on it at all. So even if they have a fast car, it doesn't mean they're going to win the championship, because I don't think they have the team, you know, behind that car, and also the. Well, maybe not with Charles Leclerc, but with Vettel, the drivers, to go out and get the results. So, even if they produce a good car, I'm not too sure how they're going to win the championship. Andrew Drury says, how do you pass the time over the winter break? Well, of course, at the minute, it's going to be videos. And by the way, there are plenty of videos coming in the winter break. So don't worry, you're not going to be put out in the cold or anything like that. I have plenty planned for the winter break. So end of season reviews. We're going to be taking the podcasts live from the 1st of December. Of course, we'll have This Week in F1 pretty much every single week, once a week. I've got some, well, not some, but quite a lot of opinion videos coming in January, and also a couple of new ideas. I'm not going to go too deep into what they are, but they are new ideas that I'm going to be testing out the end of December and in January as well. And then, of course, pre-season previews, car launches, and the rest is history. So don't worry, there's plenty planned for the winter. Gina, if Max was driving like that and Red Bull was as good, do you think Max could win the championship this year? If Max, and I think I said this in the last episode of This Week in F1, if you haven't seen that, by the way, go and check it out. I said if Max was in, the same car as Lewis, I don't think he would win the title this year, because Lewis has not made, except for, well, he hasn't, has he? He hasn't made any mistakes in 2018. So, and, Max has. You have Bahrain, you have Australia, China, Baku, Monaco. He's made plenty of mistakes this season, so I don't think Max would, in an equal car or in the same car as Lewis Hamilton, win the Drivers' Championship. Simon Troop, what's your best 5 races of the season so far? In no particular order, because I can't decide right now. Silverstone. Silverstone's in there. Bahrain, Brazil, Austria, and probably Kota as well. Maybe China, actually. I don't know. But those are the 6. Just looking at some more comments. There's plenty of comments here. Thank you very much, guys, for commenting and asking questions. JB, is the face reveal going to be during the winter break? Yes, it will. That is an absolute guarantee. And by the way, and I'll guarantee this now, I will be doing a face reveal in December. When that face reveal is, well, you'll just have to watch all the videos and find out. Am I the only one excited for Leclerc and a Ferrari? Nope, you're not, Electro Knights. There are thousands, maybe millions, who knows, that are excited about Leclerc and a Ferrari, because if he can be this good in a Sauber, what can he do in what could be the best car, or one of the best cars in 2019? We'll have to see. Ben McCarthy, what is your top 3 favourite F1 helmet designs of all time? Obviously, Senna will be in there. Yep, Senna is in there. I've never really thought of this, but yes, Senna's definitely in there. Who else would I go for? This is going to be weird, but I'm going to go Jenson Button, his McLaren design. I really did like that. And by the way, when I say McLaren design, I mean the one from 2010, 2011, 2012, and I think 2013 as well. That design, I really like that. And I think Michael Schumacher's as well, the red helmet that he had after Barrichello joined the team, and he had to change his helmet because people couldn't tell them apart. So, yeah. I'd say Schumacher, Button between 2010 and 2013, and Ayrton Senna. Ark Invader, Ocon is an idiot. Yep, we know that for sure. JB, I already know what you look like, Chaz, from your old videos. Do you look any different? Yeah, a bit, definitely. Those were quite a while ago. I think, was it three years ago? I think it was. So yeah, I definitely do look different. Not massively different, but definitely different. Simon Troop, do you see Norris and Russell scoring major points in 2019? No, I don't, because their cars are not going to be fast enough, but I do think they will get points finishes. Not an absolute ton, but say 3 or 4. I definitely am Looking forward more to Russell, though, in the Williams, because I do think George Russell is better than Lando Norris, and he has proven that in F2 this season. So I am looking forward to Russell a lot in the Williams. I really hope Williams improve, because I want to see Russell able to go for points. Ben McCarthy, do you watch F1 races with friends and family? Well, I do the watch-alongs, so I watch it with you guys. So there you go. JB, what has been the 5 / best races of the turbo hybrid era? Worst races? Well, I won't say any race, but most of the races in 2015. Just go watch those. They're absolutely terrible. I'd say say the first 9 races in 2015 were probably the worst I've ever seen. So yeah, go and watch those. Best races, top 5 best races of the turbo era, I would say would be Hungary 2014, Bahrain 2014, what else? Baku 2017, Silverstone 2018, and maybe this race as well. I don't know, I'll have to think about the 5th one. Connor Chapman, do you think we're going to see even riskier driving with all the rookies on the grid? I think we might. We really could. Of course, Alexander Albon is rumoured to be taking the Toro Rosso seat for 2019. So, yeah. I think there's a possibility, but I think, Norris, Russell and Albon, those 3 at least are, those drivers are level-headed enough. Tonka Toy Truck says, I thought we were family. You absolutely are. And that's what I basically meant by what I was saying. You're all part of the family. Say Rugara says Austria 2016. That was a good race, but not amazing. I've definitely seen better since 2014. Just looking through the chat to see if I missed any comments. Arkinfighter saying hey to me a couple times. I don't know if I've missed a question from him or not, but hello to you as well. I'm just looking. There's so many good ones. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the best ones. RJ Heat. Any new / updated info on the rumour of Kubica being offered the Williams seat? There was an article, I don't know if it was yesterday or during the weekend, that Kubica is set to sign for Williams in 2019. And if he has, by Sunday, we will cover that in This Week in F1 live on Sunday. But yeah, there has been updated info. He apparently, and this is according to Autosport, is set to sign for Williams. So, Robert Kubica, and yeah, as Warren M said there, yeah, Robert Kubica is about to come back to F1. The last time he raced in F1 was 2010 and the 2010 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where he finished, I think, in 5th in that race. A very good race from him that day. He did very well in the Renault that season. So yeah, Kubica is going to be back in F1, and if he does beat Russell, then I think Kubica will be leaving Williams very quickly at the end of 2019. So if that is true, I cannot wait to see him back. I just hope he hasn't lost that speed, because if you have not seen any, Robert Kubica overtakes or laps, hot laps, then go and find some, because that guy on his day was unbelievably quick. If none of you guys have seen his lap at Monaco in 2010, that lap was one of the best laps I think I've ever seen at Monaco. It was just an amazing lap. And in a Renault which was not as fast as the Red Bull, the McLaren, Ferrari or the Mercedes, but he qualified second behind only one of the Red Bulls. It was a truly special lap. Right, let me just look. You guys are getting very, very excited about Kubica coming back. I am as well. I just hope it's not just a rumour. And Autosport was speaking so poorly about Kubica's odds. That's from Connor Chapman. I did see that video. I think you might have watched it as well. I did see that. Yeah, that'll be kind of interesting to see their reaction if it is announced. Francisco says BMW Sauber was his favourite team back in 2007 and 2008 with Kubica and Heidfeld. They were very good in that in those 2 seasons, and might be a bit controversial to say, but I think if BMW had not given up, developing the car after their only race win as BMW Sauber in Canada, if they developed the car through the entire of 2008 and did not concentrate massively on 2009, I think Kubica would have won the championship. I really think he would have. So, again, might be a bit controversial to say that, but if you look at how far off he was at the end of the season in a car that for most of the season was underdeveloped, he definitely would have been there with Massa and Hamilton, at least at the final race. Warren M. Some of those Autosport videos are cringeworthy, though, as a pure journalistic piece. They can be. I have looked at the comments on those videos, and they're not exactly healthy. So, yeah. Kubica's odds are pretty slim. Well, if Autosport are right, then they're not pretty slim. But again, I don't want to say that it's absolutely true because we don't know for a fact. Serugara, all of our older guys seem to be leaving. Now Rosberg, Massa, Button, Alonso next, and then who? Raikkonen. Yep, it'll be Raikkonen, then probably Hamilton, and then Vettel. And also you got Kubica, but Kubica is actually quite young. He's not as old, I think, as people would think he is. I think he's only 31, I think, or 30. He's not, oh no, he's not 30 or 31. He's about 30, I think 32 or 33. But, Lewis Hamilton is around the same age. And just look at how good Hamilton is right now. So, yeah. Connor Chapman, I think we're experiencing the changing of the guard. We absolutely are. The new top drivers are going to be Verstappen, Leclerc, Ocon if he does go to Mercedes, but I think after this race those chances are dented. Gasly, Russell, Norris, maybe Mick Schumacher. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see. Ben McCarthy, that means Kubica is in top 5 youngest race winners if he's 31 or 32. Well, if you count, for the the youngest winners, if you count each race as different, then Max Verstappen technically is in the top 5 for all. But in terms of 5 separate drivers, I think it's Verstappen, Vettel, Alonso, Hamilton, and maybe Kubica as well. Francisco saying Kubica debuted in that chaotic Hungarian Grand Prix. He did. He was doing well, but then made a couple of mistakes. And then, yes, he did finish 3rd. In his, I think that was only his 3rd F1 race. He finished 3rd behind Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen. So it just shows you that the guy, ever since he turned up in F1, showed the speed and the ability to be able to win a title. And again, in 2008, if BMW did not give up developing the car, I think he would have won the championship. Because he was leading after Canada in 2008 by 4 points, I think, or 2 points. But then they gave up on the car and focused on 2009. What if? That is really a true what if. JB, what do you say to people who say F1 cars just drive in circles? I don't see anything. I just closed that argument completely. Simon Troop, who do you think will win the F2 title in Abu Dhabi out of Russell and Albon? It's going to be Russell, because Russell is, I think, the best driver in that series and will do enough to win the championship. I think he only needs to get pole position to actually take it. So, yeah. Say Ruggiero Kubica was the driver of 2008. Maybe. Massa was very good. Vettel, of course, in the Toro Rosso. Yeah, 2008 was a very, very exciting season. And Tonka Toy Truck, yes, I will. Right, we're coming to the end now of the Q&A. So guys, if you do have a final question, then put it in the chat. I'm going to probably do 2 more, and then I will go on to the videos that I'm going to be uploading between tomorrow when the podcast comes out with me and Nib, between then and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend. Of course, the final race of 2018. It has flown by, but it has been a great season. Right, I've picked 2 and they're very good at the latest comments. Ben McCarthy, who is the greatest racer of all time in terms of racecraft? Oh, that's difficult to say. You know what? I'm going to say Alonso. If you go back and look when he was at Ferrari, and even when he was at Renault the first time, his overtakes were fantastic. Absolutely great. You know, round the outside of Michael Schumacher in Hungary in 2006. His overtakes for Ferrari were great. You know, going around the outside of Mark Webber at the second chicane at Monza. You know, overtakes at the European Grand Prix of 2012. I'd have to say Alonso, but again, I'm only saying that because I don't know a lot, or, you know, yeah, I don't really know a lot about Prost and his racecraft. Of course, Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton, they have to be in there. Who else would I put in there? I was going to say Montoya. I don't know why I'm thinking that. You could say Raikkonen. There's plenty of drivers you could put in that. But, and Simon Troop, just to answer your question, are you doing an F2 season review? Probably. We'll have to see, though, what my schedule's like. Right. The final question goes to Francisco. Top 5 drivers that have not won the championship. So, Sterling Moss, Gilles Villeneuve. Just trying to think after that. Those 2 are the obvious ones, but after that, who would I put? You've got, you know, drivers like Barrichello, Coulthard, Kubica, Mark Webber. Who else? So, Moss and Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve, by the way. You know what? I'm going to go surprise. I'm going to throw a surprise in the top 5. So, Moss, Gilles Villeneuve, Gerhard Berger. I know that's a surprise, but he was a mega driver back in the 80s and 90s. Someone's saying there Felipe Massa. I wouldn't say Massa because I think talent-wise and just over the course of his career, I don't think he showed enough. I mean, of course, 2008 he should have won the championship. But in terms of the top 5 best drivers to never win one, I wouldn't say Actually, yep, someone just suggested it, sorry, in the chat. Ronnie Peterson. That is one. Ronnie Peterson. So, Sterling Moss, Gilles Villeneuve. Who did I put before? Who was it? Oh, Gerhard Berger. And Ronnie Peterson. And my fifth one, I am going to go for... Oh, it's so difficult. This is such a good question. Thank you, Francisco, for asking that. It's such a good one. I can't think of the fifth one. You've got Massa, Barrichello, Coulthard, again Webber, Kubica. You know what? I'm going to go Mark Webber. So, Sterling Moss, Gilles Villeneuve, Ronnie Peterson, Gerhard Berger. Actually, no. I've just remembered him. There you go. I'm going to take out Berger and replace him with someone else. So, I'll go Sterling Moss, Gilles Villeneuve, Mark Webber, Ronnie Peterson, and Jean Alesi. That guy on his day, pace-wise, was scarily quick. Especially in the rain. That guy had balls of steel. I'll just leave it at that. If you've never seen overtakes of him, or if you've never seen hot laps from him, just search in YouTube in the search engine. Alesi drifting. It is incredible what that guy was able to do with a car. He was way too hot-headed to ever compete for a championship and didn't ever get in a good enough car. But that guy... talent-wise, pace-wise, he had scary pace. Very scary. And you know what? In a way, he's kind of similar to Max Verstappen right now. So, yeah, there you go. But we'll move on from the Q&A. Thank you guys so much for asking questions. That final one was fantastic, and so was all of your comments and questions. But what is coming up on my channel between now and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend and the preview for that race? So, tomorrow on Tuesday, I will be uploading the podcast for the 2018 Brazilian Grand Prix where me and Niblo are going to review the race and talk about what happened. By the way, if you're in our Discord server, make sure right now, I'd say for the next 3 hours, put in your questions for you that you want answered at the end, and we will do so. And by the way, if you're not in our Discord server, you can have a podcast question, you know, put in the that tab and have it answered. So there you go. Make sure to join that. The link to the Discord server is at the bottom of the description. And then on Thursday, I'm going to do a video on Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon. That'll be between 4 and 5 p.m. on Thursday. Then on Saturday will be another episode of the podcast between 4 and 5 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. And then This Week in F1 will be live at 1 p.m. UK time. The reason is because there's a certain other sporting event on that day that I don't want to clash with. So I'm going live at 1 p.m. UK time. And that's the next time I will be live here on the channel. My throat is now starting to give out. So that is next weekend or this weekend. And then on Monday and Tuesday next week, I should have probably put the exact date, but I forgot to do that. So obviously, because normally we do the Classic F1 series on the Thursday after a race, because I'm doing the Verstappen Ocon video, the final part of my review of the 2012 season will be out on Monday between 4 and 5 p.m. UK time. Then on Tuesday, because of the success of the Ferrari battery issue videos, I am going to look at the Mercedes wheel hub issue and look at what is it legal, and is it why Mercedes have been so good in the final half of 2018. Make sure to check that out next Tuesday, so that's in 8 days time. And then of course after that is the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview and the last race weekend of 2018. But guys, thank you very much for this race review. Has been great as always. If you are new to the channel, we do this for every race weekend, and we will be doing this for 2019. So don't forget to subscribe on the bottom right of the screen, or click on my channel name and go to my channel page and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to like this video and comment down below what you thought of this video and what you thought of the Brazilian Grand Prix and the incidents that happened. And as well, don't forget to join our Discord server, link below in the description. It is at the very bottom. The best way to get notifications for my videos is the Discord server, so make sure you join the server below. And also, I almost forgot to mention this, I might be doing a test stream on Saturday night because there is something I'm looking to add to my streams from now on that I want to test out with you guys on Saturday night. So if you would come along to that, it's not going to last very long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I just want to test something out. So if you guys could on Saturday night come along to that, that'd be all good. I'll let you guys know in the Discord server the plan for that. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Link below as always, and also a link to my website chazrhd.com. A great place to keep up to date with me and the channel. But guys, that has been it for your 2018 Brazilian Grand Prix. And until the next video, the podcast, and the next time I'm live this week in F1 on Sunday afternoon in the UK, it's been me, ChazRHD. Goodbye.